Hey guys, Kenny G here. We're going to resume our mindfulness discussions with this is lesson 2 or class 2, whatever you want to call it. I actually have the handout here for week 2 from when I went to the class. If you haven't watched the first video, I recommend you go back and watch the first video before we continue here. Because it's important to know the first steps. Mindfulness and relaxation is not something you can just rush through. You need to go watch the first one, then come here. I know they're longer videos, but the whole point is to really listen, acquire the knowledge necessary, and well, be able to apply it. So, yep, I do have the worksheet for week 2 here, and we'll step through it a little bit. It's yeah, it's good. So let's jump into it. I'll try to make this lesson a little quicker. Last week was really long. It was 30 minutes, but let's try week 2. So, what is mindfulness? Again, we asked this question, right? And this class opens with a question that is, what is the difference between knowledge versus knowing? Right? What is the difference? What's the difference between knowing and knowledge? I'll give you a second. You can pause the video if you want to think about it, and then come back and we can discuss it. Right? Okay, so the difference between knowledge and knowing is really it comes down to this. Knowing is something that's ingrained in you from the day you were born. Knowing really is like something that's built into you from the day you were born. Like, when I'm hungry, I need to eat. I gotta protect my eyes. Stuff like that, right? Those are things that they're almost like instincts, right? Where that's knowing. Knowledge on the other hand is, well, you watch the first video, so you gain some knowledge, right? It's like a library. You have a book, right? You read the book, then you've gained some knowledge, right? Knowledge is really external factors, external things that have imparted knowledge onto you, whether that's religion, school, books, videos here on YouTube, something you watch on TV, discussions with other people. That's all knowledge, right? Even what's something else I can use as an example? Even things that you think are like knowing, right? Like fire is hot, I shouldn't stick my hand in it, is knowledge, right? That's not something you were born knowing. You weren't born knowing fire is hot, right? You learn that. So someone told you that, don't do that, or maybe you touched fire and you were like, ow, right? That's knowledge. You've acquired knowledge. You're gathering all of this stuff and putting it in your brain like it's a library, right? And you have all of this knowledge. And knowing is well, stuff you were born with, right? So that was the first question of our class. You can take some time and ponder what's the meaning behind the question. But there are multiple questions, so I kind of got to move on to the next one, which is expectations versus acceptance, right? And this was the key one in the class, and this was about well, maybe I should give you a second to think about it yourself. What is the difference between expectations versus acceptance, right? Maybe you want to pause the video again and think about it for a moment. It's up to you. I'll give you
my belief on it, and what we discussed in the class, which is expectations is it can be many things, right? And both can be negative and positive. So the whole point is to not say that expectations are bad, acceptance is good, or vice versa, right? Because you can have expectations that are unrealistic, but it's also not bad to have expectations. On the other side, acceptance can be good, but it could be bad, right? You could be like, I'm accepting a bad situation. I'm in an abusive relationship, but I am accepting it. Or I'm not using my talent to its full degree, but I just accept it. But there's also times where acceptance is very important, right? Like accepting that you have a medical condition, like my scenario right now, right? Accepting that you can't control it, right? But there's two sides to it, like I was saying. So there's expectations and acceptance, right? So you this one gets really tricky, right? Excuse me. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes I place unrealistic expectations on friends, right? Like my big hobby, if you're following my channel, you know I'm into cars heavily, right? So because of my illness, I haven't been able to practice the hobby a lot recently, but I would like to be able to take my cars out to the track. And in the past, I wanted to, and I was always like, I don't want to go alone. It's very, very kind of scary to go alone, right? So I place expectations on my friends that, hey, you're gonna come with me to back me up here, right? I don't want to go alone. And they don't want to go, or they just don't feel like it. And so I get upset, right? And angry. And I start to feel those emotions of like betrayal almost, right? Where you're like, come on, I've done all these favors for you, and you can't do this one for me. And it makes you feel these emotions, right? Maybe you haven't experienced that one. Maybe you're better than the average person with expectations, but a lot of people have expectations that don't get met, and that's what I'm talking about, is being accepting of people not meeting your expectations. That specifically is a big one, right? Is we have expectations of other people. Often they don't meet those expectations, and we judge them very harshly, which is wrong, right? We need to accept that everyone is on their own journey, and that where our paths line up is great, and where they don't, we need to accept that that's life, you know? And if you don't accept, there's something wrong with you. So I'll give you an example. Separate from me and my car hobby. There is a mother in the class, not naming names or anything like that, who has a child who's like 18, and he was into drugs. He was getting into drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. Now the mother is very angry about it, and the teacher said that, there's nothing you can do. You've already parented the child to the age of 18. By the time they're like 13, 14, entering into maybe 18, in that range, that's the years that they form their individuality, right? And then they have to go out into the world and experience the world. There's no way you can prevent them from experiencing the world, right? So if you try to, they'll just lash out at you and be angry at you and upset at you. So this mother is upset, right? And the teacher says, that's your problem, right? And the mother is like, but And she's like, no, you have to accept that he is his own man now and he's on his own journey. And if you're upset because of expectations you've placed on him, that's your problem. You know, he might be doing stuff that you disagree with, right? But that's not the point. The point is that you've placed expectations and you're reacting because he's not meeting your expectations. And you're getting angry or sad or depressed, and you're like, why am I'm a bad mother, or I'm a bad parent, and I've let my child down by allowing this to happen. And those are all bad emotions that go back to, triggering that sympathetic nervous system into tensing up and becoming depressed. And this goes back to mindfulness, right? You need to be able to step back from that situation and acknowledge that, okay, this is a grown person. Even if he is your son or daughter or whatever, that they are now an adult and they are on their own journey. And if you place expectations on them and they don't meet them and you're upset about it, that's your problem, not them. You shouldn't be angry at them for not meeting your expectations. Of course, there is a difference when they're like 5 and you're trying to teach them like to learn the alphabet or whatever, or whatever age they learn the alphabet. But point being, when they're adults and you start placing expectations and they don't meet them and you get upset, that's your problem. Okay, so that was the discussion we had for lesson 2, was the main one being expectations versus acceptance, right? Being able to accept things as they are, being able to know when accepting is a bad thing and when it's a good thing, right? Like when I said accepting, that you have an illness that there's nothing you can do about, right? There's no point raging over it, even though, myself, I've cried and raged over my illness that I can't control. There's nothing I can do. No matter how much I try, there's nothing I can do about having this illness. So all I can do is accept it, and then because I've accepted it, I can take steps to do something about it. So that is expectations versus acceptance and being mindful of it, right? Again, being mindful. So, okay, so now we'll jump into the breathing exercises for this week. I hope you tried the breathing exercises from the previous lesson. I've got the paper here specifically for breathing exercises, right? This one is a little different. This one involves you breathing and touching the tips of each one of your fingers, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And there's a reason you do this, and it's here on this chart, which unfortunately is hard probably for you to see. So I'll just read it to you, right? Each finger is linked to a different part of your brain, right? And so what we're trying to do, right, is stimulate the different parts of the brain, coordinating, touching with breathing, right? So, like old monks where they've got like, what are those things called? I forget, but they're like, oh, right? They're essentially doing this, but they just didn't know the science behind it, right? So each finger is connected to a different thing. So let's go over them, all right? Pinky finger, temporal lobe, so stuff like music and hearing. This guy here, the second one here, optical lobe, which relates to drawing and reading. Then we've got our middle finger, some people's favorite finger, parietal lobe, which is related to body movement, motor skills, and hand control. Then we've got, our index finger, right, which is connected to our frontal lobe, which is thinking, analysis, and imagination. And then we've got our thumb, which is the prefrontal lobe, which is executive and cognitive functions, personality, and behavior, right? So that's what each finger, right? They have nerves in them, and all those nerves run up and they connect with different parts of the brain. You know, our hands are very closely connected with our brain. You think about the amount of stuff we do with our hands, right? And you think about the monks and how they did, like I demonstrated already. And on top of that, what was I trying to say here? The fact that this is science now, right? We're tapping into science. The whole point is to change the way your brain works, because you can't. Okay, I should have said this earlier, but I didn't. You can't change the way your brain. If you're in a stressful situation, right? You can't change the way you're thinking by thinking more. So, for example, you're stressing and then you're like, I need to calm down. I need to calm down. I need to calm. It's not going to calm you down. You need to do things to try to trigger your biological functions to calm you down, right? So that's why, you know, if you were in that situation, you might start doing some kind of breathing exercise to calm yourself down. Just thinking, I need to calm down, is not going to do anything, right? And our society is obsessed with thinking, which goes back to that whole knowledge thing, right? That is, we're always thinking all the time. Our brain is always thinking, and we're always like, we need to get more knowledge. Give me more knowledge. Anyways, let's move on from that because I got on a little rant there. Let's go back to this. So the whole point of this, starting with your off hand, so not your dominant hand, do this, okay? And then you count your breaths. This is called counting breaths. I'm sorry, I'm just reading the paper. I know this, but for some reason I'm reading the paper instead of just telling you. Start with any hand, say the left hand, touch the tip and thumb of the little finger. So here we go. Count your breaths as explained. So you count 3 breaths on each finger, right? Doing the same breaths we did week 1. Remember what that was? It was 4 seconds in, hold, 6 seconds out. So on each finger. I'll demonstrate for you now. It's probably going to take roughly 45 seconds to a minute. So please hang in there because this is important, right? So with your weak hand, my dominant hand is this hand. So this hand, and go. And you do 3 breaths per finger. So next finger. Okay, so that's one hand, right? Then you alternate to the other hand. The idea is you're going to keep doing this for a few minutes, preferably 5 minutes, but you could do it for 1 minute if that's all you can squeeze into your schedule. But really, you should be trying to make as much time as you can for this stuff. I don't really know if the mic is picking up my breathing. I mean, I guess it is. But yeah, try to do this and see if it helps you, right? For each person, it's different. It may or may not work for everyone, but try it. Try it. There's 2 more breathing exercises in lesson 2, so I got to move along a little quicker than I would like. We're already at 20 minutes, so here's the next one. This is if you prefer to not do the what you call it, the one I just did, counting breaths. You can do something different. This is called sound meditation. There's 4 different sounds, and you're going to be doing the exact same thing. The exact same thing, touching your tips while making noises. So there's 4 they got here, and they relate to, well, getting out frustrations, right? So think about this, okay? When you're angry, right? When you're angry and you've gotten really angry, what do? You yell, right? Like, ah, right? You get your anger out. And even if you are angry at a person still, after a few minutes, you just feel better, right? You've yelled. You might feel guilty after you've yelled, right? If your yelling was not warranted, but if it was warranted, you feel really good. Why is that? That's because sounds stimulate your whole nervous system, right? Your nervous system, I should have explained this in lesson 1. Sound stimulates your whole nervous system. And so your vocal cords can stimulate your stomach, and your stomach releases the endorphin. What's that endorphin called? Ooh, I'm brain farting right now. Serotonin. That's the one that releases the happy, feely emotions. So when you yell or sing, for example, if you sing in a car, you might find that you suddenly feel so much better. You sing in the car, you blast some tunes, and you're singing along to them, and you're like, wow, I feel really good, right? That's because your vocal cords resonate with this nervous system. A lot of your body is connected by this one nerve. I'll get the nerve's name for you. Give me 1 second. Vagus nerve, this is it. Okay. The vagus nerve, that's the one. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the nerve. So the vagus nerve interfaces with your parasympathetic nervous system. So when you sing, right? Or like church. I'm not really religious, but a lot of people are, and they might feel better after they've done like hymns, right? At church. And that's you're stimulating the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve taps into your parasympathetic nervous system, connects to your heart, to like your lungs, to your stomach, to everything. And when you stimulate that, it releases serotonin in the stomach, and the serotonin makes you feel good, right? So that's the whole point of sound meditation, is to tap into that vagus nerve, right? So there's 2 types. Before we do the hand one, there's a very simple sound meditation using the same breathing, same techniques as we talked about last week with breathing and stuff, except for we're going to make sounds, right? So you breathe in for 4, and then we're gonna go ah, right? And I know it sounds silly, and this is something you maybe want to practice when you're driving to work or something like that, and you just and this is if you're not in the mood for singing, right? Because obviously singing is going to do the same, achieve this similar thing, right? So breathe in for 4 through the nose, always through the nose. There's a reason for that. The nerves in your nose crisscross like this up to your brain. So when you stimulate the nerves here, you're stimulating the 2 sides of your brain, right? One side is for action, one side is for relaxing. Parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous systems, right? So let's try the first one, which is just to the ahs. And so it's like go as long as you can. Again. And do that for, 30 seconds. 30 seconds to a minute. Now, try to do a minute if you can. The other one is So this is the one that's more of like a relaxation type. The ah is like an anger. Get it out, right? The is like a relaxation. So the next one is breathe in. Same breathing technique, right? 4 seconds. Ideally, you should close your eyes, but you don't have to. The whole point of closing your eyes is just to reduce stimulation, so you're focused on your breath, right? And your noises. You don't have to, like if you're driving or something like that. But again, the whole point is to reduce the stimulation from your eyes. So next, the hand one I mentioned just a moment ago. Okay, so we'll start with, there's 4. There's sa, ta, na, ma. Okay, I know it's kind of weird. I know it was weird for me too. So you just got to get used to it. So it's like sa, ta, na, and you do that a couple times. So each time I do one of these demonstrations, you might want to pause the video and then practice it for a few minutes, right? So let's do it one more time. Sa, ta, na, ma. Whew. So if you get yawny after doing these breathing exercises, that means you're breathing too fast, right? A yawn is obviously your body trying to get in a whole bunch of air, right? It's like, right? That's a yawn, right? It's because you're breathing so fast that your body is like, no, we need to get in more air. If you're doing this correctly, you won't be yawning, because the whole point is not to make you sleepy. It's to relax your muscles, right? To relax your body, not to make you fall asleep necessarily, and certainly not to make you yawn, right? If you're yawning, you're not doing it right. So last breathing exercise. We're getting up there in time. We're at 30 minutes. Holy moly. This is gonna be a lot of video to edit if I gotta edit anything out. Okay, so the last one is eye breath meditation. So this one you're gonna find difficult. I found it difficult, but there is a purpose to this. So I'm gonna read it to you, and then we'll practice. You're supposed to do this with your eyes closed. So obviously you can't do this while driving, but I'm going to do it with my eyes open. That way you can kind of get an idea of what we're trying to achieve here, right? There is a reason we're doing this, and that is, there's a diagram here. I can show you, but it's probably not going to make much sense, right? So you see your eyes, right? When they perceive something, they send a signal to the thalamus, right? And it's supposed to send the signal right back to the visual cortex at the back of your brain, back here, right? But there is a short circuit straight to the amygdala, whatever, which is basically like a peanut inside your brain. And that little peanut is the fight-or-flight reflex. So when you're in a fight or flight mode, aka not in a relaxed mode, right? Signals short circuit and goes straight to the oblongata, which triggers a fear response, right? Fight or flight. If you can control yourself through this meditation, this eye meditation we're about to do, then the signal will go to the back of your brain, be able to be processed, and then you can handle the situation better, right? Give a proper situational response and not a fear response, right? So this one's a little weird, but we're gonna give it a try anyways. And again, like I said, each exercise might not work for everyone. You need to do what works for you. So this one, the whole point is well, we're moving our eyes, like rapid eye movement when you're sleeping, similar to that, but we're syncing it with our breath. So when we move our eyes, we're going to breathe in, and when we release our eyes, we're going to when we release our breath, we're going to return our eyes to center. So it starts by we're looking up, right? It's hard for me to look at the camera and look up. This is weird. Look up and breathe in. So then return your eyes to center. Look back at me, I guess. I don't know. Look to your left. No, look to your upper left. So return to center. Then your upper right. Return to center. It's hard for me. I can't see the camera while doing this, so it's kind of weird. I'm looking to the left. Return to center. Return to center. Same breathing techniques as before. 4 in, 6 out. I'm not doing it right now. This is hard to coordinate everything, but I'm trying to demonstrate for you just the concept, right? Now, I'm trying to follow my finger because you're supposed to do this with your eyes closed. It's a really weird one. So now bottom left. Bottom right. Straight down. Now let's try it one more time. I was kind of jibber jabbering while I was doing that. So 8 directions, right? Up, left, upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right, down. Right? So now let's do it one more time. If you're doing it with your eyes open, just follow your finger. That's easy. So Hold for 2. Upper left. Okay, so that was one more time. Hopefully, I can't look at the camera and do this at the same time. So hopefully, you were able to visualize something in my eyes. I don't know. Maybe I'll see when I play this back. Whole point being what I said before, which is we want to get in a relaxed state, right? If you remember, when you're having a deep sleep, right? Your eyes are not having like, well, hang on, let me double check this for you. Yeah, okay, that's exactly what thought it was. REM sleep or deep sleep are the deepest stages of sleep you can achieve. So REM is the 4th stage of sleep, is when you have rapid eye movement, right? And that's what we're stimulating here. So sorry, I just had to look that up. The definition, I mean. But yeah, that's what we're trying to simulate here, right? So we're trying to access a relaxed mode by breathing, right? By achieving that slow, controlled breathing, along with rapid eye movement. But it's not that rapid, right? We don't want to move too fast. If you move too fast, you're going to make yourself dizzy. You're probably going to make yourself sick, and you're going to be like, this is a terrible meditation. I don't want to do this again. No, the whole point is slow movements. If I move too fast for you in my demonstration, go slower. Sync it up with your breaths, right? It's like, but you're supposed to do it with your eyes closed, right? So it's harder for me to demonstrate with my eyes closed, but it's like, now, students in the class complained that hurt their eyes, and the teacher said that that's normal because you're just not used to it. Once you get used to it, it will be normal, and it won't hurt for you to move your eyes, like looking upper left or upper right, with your eyes closed while doing this, right? That's just normal. If you're uncomfortable doing it with your eyes closed, you can always do what I demonstrated, which was follow your finger, right? So these were the meditation techniques and the discussions for week 2 of mindfulness. Again, I'm doing this for 2 reasons, really. One sort of selfish reason, which is to reiterate to myself so that I get it in this thick skull, right, to try and remember it, but also to pass on the knowledge to you guys, because a lot of us are suffering. I mean, I'm suffering so much with pain, but I know that this stuff is important, and I'm trying to pass it on to you guys, whoever's watching the video. So this is week 2 of mindfulness. I hope this was helpful for you. Please try the breathing techniques, and please try them for a few days before you move on to the 3rd class. All right. That's all for now. Thank you for watching. Sorry it's a long video, but they're all probably going to be long videos because this involves a lot of discussion and then demonstration. So, okay, thanks for watching. Have a good one.